All right, over the course of these next two audio lectures, we're going to be discussing Hinduism. And again, these lectures are not intended to be exhaustive of these topics, but just to get you going in terms of orient you generally so that you are able to get more out of the reading and you hopefully will do better on the quizzes as a result. So I want to start this two-part lecture series on Hinduism by mentioning a few things that Hinduism does not have. Now, maybe before I do that, I should say Hinduism is going to be the first major world religion that we are taking a look at. So previously we took a look at indigenous religious movements, and it's not to say those are not major religious. Well, I guess I am saying that they're not major religious movements. Major in terms of population. And if you look at populations for Hinduism, and I'll look this up now because I don't know the exact number, but let's see, 1.1 billion Hindus on the planet. So substantial amount, and it's what we would consider a major world religion. So that differentiates it, and there are a few other things that would differentiate this as a religious movement from indigenous religious movements, and we'll take a look at those now. A couple things Hinduism does not have, though, is a founder. So I guess that is a similarity between Hinduism and indigenous religious movements. Hinduism doesn't have a founder, and although this might be argued, some might say that there was a founder and that the existence of the founder was forgotten. The earliest known Hindus were called Aryans, and they emerged in the 18th century BCE. A quick note about BCE: you might be more familiar with BC. I use the term BCE. BC before Christ, and BCE before Common Era. I think it's a little bit more, especially in a world religion class. We should try to strive for a more. I don't know. Let's not assume that everyone is a Christian, and so many of you are not. In fact, so BCE is a little more neutral in that way. So before current era, so 18th century BCE, a long time ago. For example, the beginning of philosophy and science in the West was around 600 BCE. So we're talking 1,000 years before that. Hinduism does not have a common god. So they believe there are many deities. This is one of the central aspects of Hinduism. Now, there's a statistic I heard once, and I'm going to repeat it, but I might be wrong about this, but there was a survey done, how many deities, how many gods exist in Hinduism, and the count was 330 million. That sounds like a lot. It is a lot. And the reason is you actually, so each region could have its own specific deities. Each town could have its own specific deities. Each part of the town could have specific deities. Each family could have specific deities. And each, maybe a part of the house or maybe an object could have specific deities. So there's a lot of, very specific deities in their religion. Each deity has a function and a personality. Now, I don't think that most Hindus will say, I believe in 330 million deities. That's not really what I'm trying to say here, but just keep it in mind that there's a wide range of deities in Hinduism. Some Hindus are pantheists. They believe in one supreme God, but God is in all things. That's what pantheism means. God is in all things. Some Hindus are monotheists. Mono meaning one, the belief in one God. And Hindus, some Hindus don't have a common, let me repeat this. Hinduism does not have a common book. And based on this, there is not a common set of beliefs. There are some important texts within the religion, but there's not a text that sort of unifies all the branches of Hinduism. And because of this, like I said, there's no common set of beliefs in the religion. So, a couple things we're going to look at here before we end the first audio presentation. There are a few things that we can say. So I just described what are a few things that Hinduism is not, and now let's take a look at what a couple things Hinduism is. Things that Hinduism is, are. Hinduism is diverse, and way more diverse than Christianity. This might, I might have to argue this, but I think it wouldn't be too hard to argue. Hindus believe that there are many paths to the divine. Many, many paths. Hinduism is very tolerant and open to other belief systems, so it wouldn't be completely out of the picture to see in a Hindu's house, for example, relics or like, for example, a Christian cross or a picture of a saint or something like that. Hindus incorporate things from other religions easier, and they're very open to the belief systems of other religions. Hinduism itself was formed from diverse traditions, and it's sometimes referred to as the oldest living religion in the world. And this would, I guess, the only other contender would be indigenous religious movements, indigenous religion, and that that would be another argument that scholars might make. But Hinduism, maybe if we just rephrase this to say Hinduism is the oldest living major world religion, I think that would probably be easy to defend. Hinduism is the third largest religion in the world, Christianity being first and Islam being second. Now, the term Hindu itself is related, and it comes from the word Indus. And if you're at a computer, you could type in Indus into Google and see what comes up. And the first thing that comes up is the Indus River. And there's a nice picture of it. So take a look at it, and you can see the overhead view. But it's this river that is the root of the word Hinduism. And actually, we're going to talk about this later, but Hinduism is a term that was applied from the outside. So the first Hindus didn't consider themselves Hindus. That name was given from people who were not Hindus to Hindus. And basically what it meant was anybody on the other side of that river, the Indus River. So, as you can see, it's not very specific. And vagueness, I think I talked about vagueness and in our terms and how it's a problem in our language. And this is part of the reason why. I mean, this is what we're dealing with, a word that sort of was made a long time ago in a just really not very precise manner to say, this group of people, anybody on this side of the river is a Hindu. It unified a lot of beliefs that were just kind of inconsistent with one another. So, for example, let's see. I already said this. Did I already say this? Yeah. Hinduism, as it is today, has been around for about 4,000 years, and some Hindus appear to be atheistic. This is what I was going to say. That's pretty radically different than being a pantheist or a monotheist or a polytheist, to be an atheist. But some Hindus appear to be atheists. Their spirituality is a philosophy of life rather than a worshiping of God or gods. And lastly, let me see how much time we have here. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes. I think the last point I want to make is the main center of worship in Hinduism is not the temple, not a church, not a temple, the home. So this is going to be a difference between a lot of the religions we look at, but the main center of worship in Hinduism is the home. All right, and then we'll pick this up in the next audio lecture, and we'll take a look at 3 different paths of Hinduism.